Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, let's maybe look past the usual price talk for a minute. We're going deeper into Bitcoin's role, specifically, how it's playing out with all this geopolitical instability we're seeing globally. We're drawing mainly from some work called Bitcoin and Geopolitical Instability. And our goal really is to get a handle on how Bitcoin is, well, showing up as a response when traditional financial systems seem vulnerable during conflict or uncertainty.
It really is a fascinating angle
Yeah.
because historically you look at major geopolitical events like wars, sanctions,
Yeah.
traditional money, traditional banks, they often get hit hard. Suddenly their capital controls, maybe hyperinflation kicks in and people find their money's worth less or they just can't access it easily.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So let's unpack that. Where does Bitcoin fit into this picture? How is it different?
Well, it comes down to its core design. Bitcoin is decentralized. That means no single bank, no single government is in control. It operates outside that direct state oversight.
Right, okay. And this isn't just theoretical, is it? I mean, the Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2022 seemed like a real flashpoint for this.
Exactly, a major test case. We saw ordinary people using Bitcoin to send money across borders when things like SWIFT were suddenly cut off for some.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. And wasn't the Ukrainian government also involved?
Oh, absolutely. They received a significant amount of donations directly in Bitcoin and also Ethereum. It showed like a real-time application of decentralized finance right in the middle of a crisis.
Wow. Okay, so if we boil it down, what are the sort of key implications here? Bitcoin's role when things get unstable globally.
There are a few big ones.
Hmm.
First, probably censorship resistance and just protecting your assets.
Yeah.
Censorship resistance. That just means you can transact, you can hold value without worrying quite so much that some authority will just block you. That's a huge deal in places facing sanctions or capital controls or just general political pressure. Bitcoin offers a path there.
So like a digital safety deposit box almost, one that's harder for any single government to just lock down.
That's a good way to put it, yes. And then there's the hedge idea, a hedge against currency instability. Think about countries where conflict leads to their currency just collapsing.
Mm.
Bitcoin's volatile, no doubt, but it can potentially offer some protection against that kind of extreme local inflation. We've seen dynamics like that play out already in places like, say, Venezuela or Lebanon, where existing economic instability made alternatives look appealing.
And the borderless aspect.
Hmm.
That seems like it could really throw a wrench in the works for things like sanctions, right? Particularly for getting aid into difficult places.
For sure. Humanitarian groups, NGOs, they could potentially use these decentralized networks to bypass the usual financial gatekeepers. It could make delivering aid in restricted zones more, well, resilient.
It almost sounds like it's trying to be politically neutral, like a form of value that doesn't inherently take sides.
That's sort of the aspiration for many users, I think. In a world where trust between countries is often shaky, Bitcoin, being politically agnostic, potentially fills the need. That's where the digital gold comparison comes in. People see it as a potential safe haven, though, again, you always have to remember the volatility. It's not actually gold.
Right. So really what we're seeing is Bitcoin in this context starting to challenge some fundamental ideas about global finance, about trust.
It definitely raises those questions, big questions about relying solely on centralized systems, banks, governments for financial infrastructure. But let's be clear, it's not a perfect solution either. There are real challenges.
Yeah, like what?
Well, cybersecurity is a constant concern. The regulatory landscape is still being built. It's uncertain in many places. And of course, the market swings, the volatility we mentioned, that's still very much a factor.
Agreed. It's definitely not straightforward. But it does feel like as long as we have this geopolitical instability, Bitcoin's relevance in these kinds of conversations isn't likely to fade. It's becoming a kind of strategic tool, maybe, for navigating uncertainty, protecting individual freedom, like our source material suggests. It could be reshaping ideas about sovereignty in this digital age.
It really could. And that brings us maybe to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to consider. Think about this. If global instability keeps rising or even accelerates, how might that push the adoption and the evolution of things like Bitcoin even faster? And what would that actually mean for your own financial independence, your sovereignty, and maybe even the bigger picture of global power down the road? Something to chew on.